October 10th be put in the record, and her title is the Associate Editor, News and Standards and Best Practices. Without objection, to be placed in the record. I apologize, and please go forward, ma'am.
Not at all. I thank you, Chairman Issa, and my sympathies to Representative Mast and his family. Thank you, Ranking Member Crow, for holding this hearing today, and I'm especially thankful to the three of you. It is an honor to be in your company, to be in conversation with you, with the extraordinary work, the body of work you all have done, but especially what you are doing now. Please send my regards to all those you work with. They are well led by you, and that might reveal that I'm a little puzzled by some of the focus of the questions today on personnel matters, because what you are doing is so incredibly important, and we need to be an appropriate partner with you, not overseeing HR. I'd like to talk first about combating disinformation. We've seen a startling rise in the spread of misinformation, disinformation, and plain, flat-out lying, both domestically and across the globe. We've even heard instances in this very room, which I find so regrettable. I've made a point to call out disinformation when I hear it and try to correct the record, because after all, if we are not operating under facts and truth, we are not operating well. I firmly believe we must ensure that people have access to reliable, fact-based information. We must support credible, unbiased media organizations that work to provide that information globally. Ms. Bennette, you say in your written testimony, quote, disinformation by our adversaries paired with censorship of truthful reporting threatens the viability of fragile democracies and presents an urgent national security risk to the United States, end quote. Mr. Kappas, you similarly state that reinforcing the democratic foundation of other nations contributes to the safety and security of the American people. And I know, Mr. Abramovitz, you have similar responsibilities. How do you all check? How do you use your organization appropriately to check and combat disinformation, particularly in those areas where we see vulnerable democracies at risk?
I'd like to cede to my colleagues, but first to say something as basic as the fact that without VOA, without Radio Free Europe, there are big parts of the world that would not even know that there had been a Russian invasion of Ukraine, because the Russians were saying there had been none. These are the only two sources of truth in that matter in very large portions of the world. So perhaps you two would like to talk about it.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, we do it in a lot of different ways. I think one of the things that we have different we have 48 different language services, and each of those services approaches it differently, but often there are, fact-checking or disinformation monitoring types of enterprises, that are carried out that are appropriate for each culture. So, for instance, the Mandarin desk, I've learned, we have a disinformation desk, and they were looking, for instance, at how Google's artificial intelligence gave answers online, and they discovered that often the answers were in line with Chinese propaganda. And then when the chatbot the Google chatbot was silent on issues like human rights abuses in Xinjiang or street protests against COVID. And so our team of reporters surfaced that, and that became something that got public, and many members of Congress and both parties learned about that, and they publicized it. So it's dozens of different exercises like that across the news services that we do that.
Thank you. Mr. Kappas?
There's a number of things I'd like to say about this, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I would say that all of the services, and you have to remember that we're operating in 23 different countries, 27 different language services. All of our entities have the mandate of identifying disinformation campaigns. Often we're some of the first people to spot them before they go viral. And so they have the mandate to find them and then report on them. You can see examples across the board of all of our services doing incredibly important work in this. I think there's a misperception that Our job is to simply be propagandists on the other side. Nothing could be further from the truth about that. We have a mandate to present the truth. If we are viewed as simply a mouthpiece for the United States government or for just being the flip side, being propagandists, then I can't think of a quicker way for all of us to be deemed irrelevant by the audiences that we're trying to reach. So we don't play games with the news. That's the most important thing that I would say that would be a takeaway, I would hope, is we don't play games with the news. We report what's going on, and that's the mission.
I thank you for that fine, diligent filter, and it's so desperately connected to national security for us, but also globally. So thank you, and especially thank you for the reporting at the Children's Hospital yesterday. Extraordinary.
Thank
I yield
you.
back.
I thank the gentlelady. I'll recognize myself now. Ms. Bennett, the committee has asked for and not received any substantiation, including dissertation,